Hi, this is Jensen Button. You're listening to Gary Jackson on Gardening. Oh God, I'm in the wrong podcast. Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed, which has been performance capped, by the way, by the introduction of intake restrictor diameter on my nostrils. Can you hear that? I'm only using 50% of the available area in my nostrils, so I apologise for the lack of scramjet quality to my voice.
I thought you were going to say we were performance limited by the fact that we're not very good.
Well, there's that.
I'm glad there's something else going on.
Ladies and gentlemen, the voice of Zog.
Hello.
And Richard.
Hello.
Yeah, I think we probably are performance restricted.
However,
No
if
way,
I
baby,
get
no way.
within
Unlimited.
1 second of you in certain parts of the show, I am able to open my mouth wider than normal.
Now, yes, which brings me to this opening gambit for today's programme. Right, I remember in the last episode saying, I love DRS, I think we should have had it years ago, and in combination with the new tyres, it's going to deliver great racing. And you two poo-pooed it.
Hang on a second. Did I?
Yes, you did.
Didn't I say I was going to
I
get
think
You
I
complained about it being artificial overtaking.
Yes.
Yeah, which I maintain.
Right, yeah.
But
However,
I'm going to wait. But I want to see how it works out. My attitude. Well, okay, maybe I've changed my mind since the last show. I can't quite remember, but my position now is, and always has been,
Very clear.
very clear, very clear. My position is, if I can just remind myself, I just care about whether it works or not, whether it improves the racing or not. On principle, yeah, it's ghastly. It's an unnecessary extra. It's not any kind of technology that has any relevance to road cars. There are all kinds of things wrong with it from a purist point of view, but if it improves the racing, then I'm happy with it.
yes, but it does have relevance to road cars, and this was the thing I
doesn't.
never
No, it
spat
doesn't.
out in.
No, it
yes,
doesn't.
it does.
Why?
Will you let me explain? Take BMW's efficient dynamics, right?
Yeah.
They are changing the aerodynamics in the bonnet of the car over and below certain speeds, as are Ford now with a Focus, to improve efficiency. Yeah.
No,
Before you
but
go
they're
any
doing
further,
that
before you go
on
any
their
further.
own, using their own wind tunnels and
Yeah.
their own knowledge of road car aerodynamics. They are not in any single way drawing upon a stupid Louvre-lap blind on the back of a bloody racing car. It's really crude and it's a really inelegant solution. However, and I agree with Zog on this, if it's improving the racing, then I'm happy to live with it.
There we go.
Time being.
There we go.
And what racing we enjoyed, eh?
Yes. Oh, well, I'm glad we smoothed over the
Yeah.
disagreement there so quickly. But,
Before that descended into raw, ugly violence.
Again. So we've had cars coming up behind other Formula One cars and stepping out of the slipstream and overtaking them. Now, if it requires a bit of jiggery-pokery from the FIA to make that happen by opening up the slot gap in the movable rear wing that is now allowed in Formula One cars, and this is my original point, I think it should always have had movable aerodynamics in Formula One. I know it's limited by the FIA,
Well-
but it should be encouraged in any
Okay,
way.
but to get back to this purist point of view that we're referring to, if you're going to have movable aerodynamics, then you should be able to use them all the time. You shouldn't be restricted in where you can use where you use them.
I agree.
And that's why it is a bit of a Mickey Mouse fix. But there is this problem that because of the way the aerodynamics are working, we've known for a long time that overtaking is harder than it should be. And so if they're coming up with this fix to get things back into line, well, you know, we'll live with that. My only reservation with the way that things are working out at the moment is, and I don't want to sort of sound too negative about this, because that last race was spectacular. Loved it. We all want to see a lot more of that this season. But my only slight reservation, though, was that a lot of the moves that happened and a lot of the overtaking moves, you could see coming a little bit too soon. You pretty much knew...
Well, it's not a soap opera. Well, I suppose it is, actually. Or a movie. You go, oh, I knew he was the killer from about 15 minutes in. But doesn't that make it better in a way? Because you're going, well, I think this is coming, this is coming. But they didn't always stick, though, and sometimes you'd see him go for it.
True, yeah.
And I enjoyed that bit. I was like, well, he's definitely going to have a go here. Oh, he's within, yeah, he's close. He's going to, I'm trying to think of specific examples. But here's the thing. I found that race in China last Sunday so overwhelming and exciting that I started thinking, oh, God, the FIA are going to have to legislate against too many things happening at once on the track because it's knackering the TV coverage.
Yes, true, we missed a lot of stuff.
We're annulling the results of the last race because it was too exciting.
Too exciting. That's not what Formula One's about. Gentlemen of the FIA, please. I agree with you, this is crazy. There are so many things happening in the Formula One, it is impossible for the TV audience to enjoy all the advertising on the cars and circuits. But do not worry, we have come up with a technical plan to correct this. Firstly, low degradation of grooved tires. Secondly, refueling is not permitted again. Thirdly, no DRS and the reintroduction of movable front wings.
This is all very well and good, but how can you be certain that the racing will be as dull and predictable as it was 10 years ago?
I'm glad you've asked me that, and I can answer that very simply. We have asked Michael Schumacher if from now on he would mind not being, how you say, rubbish.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
I love the expression that's used to describe the rapid fall-off of the performance of the Pirelli tyres on F1 cars at the moment. They talk about going over
The cliff.
the cliff.
Yes.
Hi, fellas, let's get on a bus and go to Greece. Not that sort of cliff, I hope. I think that would be very entertaining if they had Cliff Richard, Cliff Mitchellmore, any Cliff,
Cliff from Cheers.
Montgomery Cliff. Yeah,
Yes,
it's a silent T. Yeah.
The Clifton Suspension Bridge.
That would do, yeah. But mostly
Oh no,
Cliff
they've gone
Richard.
off the Clifton Suspension Bridge. No, that would be awful.
That would be
That'd
great.
Carnage.
That's spectacular.
Great.
though,
It would be
but,
great.
Well, no, they could use the DRS to trim the vehicle as it plummets,
As it
just to
plummeted
get
towards
enough
the gorge.
nose
beneath.
up, and it might just land and bottom out. That would be good. Now, sorry,
You can try that. I'll be standing on the cliff edge watching.
it's about managing your tyres as much as overtaking thanks to artificial FIA. The truth of why Lewis Hamilton was able to hunt down Vettel and take him in the last, was it 6 laps?
Yeah.
Was that he did that cool thing in qualifying of sitting there and saying, I'm going to save one set of tyres instead of going out. So he had one extra set of tyres for the race. I mentioned this before about McLaren putting a race weekend together better than any other team. They think about that. You always look at first practice times at any Grand Prix, and McLaren, they go out there, they usually say they're okay, but you know, it'll be Force India or Ferrari at the top of the timing sheets, and McLaren's say, well, we're running our weekend programme. They don't allow themselves to get carried away. They keep their powder dry.
They're so professional. They're so slick. They're so
Just
together.
like
They're
us,
just the
really.
most incredible operation.
I mean, to repair that car, for
my
starters.
respect and admiration
Yes.
for McLaren just constantly.
Well, they
on the
fixed the flooded engine problem on Hamilton's car using kitchen roll.
Yeah, that was
which
lovely.
I found quite endearing.
And as I watched that,
We
I
could
don't
have
know
done
if you saw this on the coverage, but it was wonderful. 2 people lifted the rear body cover off. Someone got in there and was mopping up the stray fuel that had been allowed to squirt out of this tube. And as they threw the kitchen towel onto the floor covered in fuel, bang, 2 of the guys were in there.
with a tray
catch-
thing to
Yeah.
So the thing that I noticed, maybe this is what you're going to refer to, was the fact that as they were unrolling the kitchen roll, one guy is holding this kitchen roll,
Yeah,
and
finally
holding it
home
steady,
team.
whilst the other guy is.
Well, like they
ripping off the roll.
practiced even
Well,
this awful
yeah,
worst case scenario
Yeah.
using, what's that one that Stephen Fry used to advertise with, thirst pockets in it. But they were just doing that. It was brilliant. It did actually look to me like extra large kitchen roll, which you don't see so much.
I think it was some kind of
It's industrial kitchen
industrial
roll.
equivalent, which if you need to mop up spills around a garage.
It reminded me of something you said, Richard, when you were in the Renault garage last year at the British Grand Prix,
Yes,
was it?
yeah, I spent qualifying there,
About
yeah.
this superbly organised, professional, integrated machine that just is able to do anything at the drop of a hat, you know, almost NASA-esque. Yeah, we can fix that problem. And it was another example of that sort of thing. We've got no idea of how brilliantly mapped out F1 teams are, unless you're HRT, of course.
Or unless you're Jenson Button on your way into the pits. And you
Oh,
have a slight
man alive.
moment.
How
that
embarrassing.
having said what an extraordinarily slick professional operation they are, that wasn't...
That was amazing, but it's sort of things like that actually that are great. I mean, obviously it's great for me.
It was
'cause
funny,
I
and it was...
have my
It's-
website
it's-
taking the mickey. out
it's
of
happened
things,
before.
But also, it has happened before. It happened last year, didn't it? With
I think a few years ago, Fizzy did it in that sort of transition.
practice.
Yeah.
But that
between
was...
Jordan and
Didn't-
Renault, or the other
didn't
way.
a Toro Rosso go into the Red Bull garage last year, or am I imagining that? And it was sort of
It's so
excused a little more
by
the colours being very similar.
Yeah.
But the McLaren
Quite
one
possibly.
was just pure. He said he was looking down. But the thing is, And to his credit, in a way that I can't imagine Alonso doing or even Hamilton doing, perhaps, because they take themselves quite seriously. They're racing quite seriously. The Button has gone, yeah, all right. I was looking down. I screwed up. He was on Twitter this week saying that they arrived in Tokyo
on his way to the pits,
and his girlfriend's giving him parking
lessons in Tokyo. And you think, all right, fair enough, the lad's taking it on the chin, or at least his manager's told him to take it on the chin. But either way, I think he's actually being quite magnanimous about it and just going, look, I made a really embarrassing error here. It was the fact that the Red Bull mechanics were going through, because almost there was a point where when I first saw it, I went, has he done that deliberately to mess with their minds because they're expecting Vettel?
Well,
clearly not, because it really did him over rather than Vettel.
Curious you should say that, though, because in the after-show coverage on the BBC, Jake Humphrey had a word with one of the Red Bull crew, some sort of Larry Cornishman, I believe. And my mate Tim Palmy, Tazza, tweeted about this. He said, look, BBC, next time you want to get a quote from Red Bull, don't go to some potentially libelous Cornish engineer on the team.
Because the Corns, the Cornish, they're famously the most libelous county in Britain. Because they're down all the way in the corner and they just think, well, they would be bothered to come down here and sue us.
Don't know the third of them up there. Don't need to worry about it. That's what they say. But I thought it was a superb moment in television where the guy from Red Bull alleged that Button had done this deliberately to either slow them up or mess with their minds.
But that's the thing.
Let's hope he was joking.
Afterwards, Coulthard said to me, oh, I've worked for them, and I think he was joking. Was he joking? I don't know. It was all, oh dear. A notable event in an interesting and an eventful race. But
right up and down the board. It wasn't just that wonderful result at the end, but you had Webber driving from 18th on the grid.
Yeah, what a performance that was. It was such a shame to see him losing out in qualifying at that, but he really rose to the challenge, and if it had been a few laps longer.
That would have been amazing if he'd overtaken Vettel as well, because, there's still this sort of sense that there is a number one and a number two driver in that team. It's good for Webber psychologically, surely, because it started off, and he was actually being overtaken in the first quarter of the race. I mean, it looked catastrophic. He was
struggling quite badly. But
everyone's thinking, a driver of that calibre in a car that it should be that good. He's going to carve through the field in one of those ways that people do when they have a great car and they can be a great driver. And then it didn't happen. It's like, oh no, he's just been overtaken by Tako Inui. Usually.
Even though he's no longer in
he's
the
been overtaken by Luca Badoa, who's actually still running in last year's race. And then from nowhere, because that's the thing, because of what we were talking about before, too many things happening in one race for the television to possibly be able to keep up with it. And can I just say as well, if you're watching in the UK, what a brilliant job Martin Brundle and David Coulthard are doing in the commentary.
Yeah, I thought they were better this time than before. I'm still not 100% convinced. They were a little bit too similar in what they do, is really my only reservation. I'd almost like there to be a bit more of the traditional one commentator who's kind of really leading the commentary, and then the more informed driver perspective to get some more insight. But having said that, I do think they're doing a great job.
What surprised me about Brundle is that he brings that sort of requisite energy to it as the lead commentator.
Exactly, he's
which
allowed
I
to do
didn't
that
think
now.
he was able to do, because we'd never seen it from him, because he had to fulfil the sort of laconic James Hunt role of just going, well, that's not quite right, Jonathan.
Now he gets excited.
But he's able to get excited, and to me, he's got it pitch perfect. Certainly in the Chinese Grand Prix, he got it pitch perfect. And what Coulthard provides is more recent experience, because there was always this danger that as a pundit, Brundle's direct experience of Formula One was dating by the minute because, of course, he hadn't competed for however many years. And that he could only start to try and extrapolate from his own experiences what was going on. Of course, some things are universal, but at the same time, some of the technical aspects of the car have moved on. And Coulthard just brings that up to date. And to me, I know what you mean, but I don't think that our big concern, I think, probably was that you have got two ex-drivers. You've got no one who is just the professional commentator, sort of effectively run the commentary box. But I think Brundle's doing a terrific job.
The interesting thing is, I think that Brundle is probably more technically knowledgeable than Coulthard. Coulthard will talk about his experiences as a driver and what you're experiencing. He doesn't get bogged down in the technicalities of it. Brundle knows more about that. And I know Coulthard's not that technical, because I interviewed him in his first couple of years with McLaren, and I asked him a couple of fairly straightforward things about the car. He had no idea. Quite basic.
But there's actually something about Brundle that I realised that he does particularly well, and it was actually in comparison with Anthony Davison, who, I don't know how much you've heard him on Radio 5, but I think
it's great.
He's nowhere near as fluent a contributor, if you like, as
not
as
tall
John
enough for TV.
Barely tall enough for radio.
Yeah, not hardly hear him on Radio 5. If it was Radio 6, he wouldn't reach.
You certainly could have put on with Jake Humphrey, but he's... no,
This is like a pretend ventriloquism act.
But he does do some really good stuff on Radio 5. He comes up with some particularly good insights, I think. And the one example that he came up with the other day was to do with the psychological side of driving and how kind of insecure drivers are and how much they need reinforcement, how much they need the results to kind of convince them that they can do it.
Yeah. Well, actually, which goes back to what I was just saying about Webber. That he seems like one of the more robust drivers because he's got maturity on his side.
Yeah.
But succeeding makes you feel like you're actually any good. And I think that even someone like Webber, who's been doing it for years...
He
to
still
be able to
needs
do that carve through the field and get on the bloody podium after an
Yeah.
awful qualifying session, he must be going, I'm going to the next race knowing that I am bloody brilliant at this and I'm going to give it a really good crack.
It might have been Webber that he was referring to in that context, but he was talking about how drivers need that kind of psychological reinforcement, how fragile they can be, in a sense, how insecure they can be. But it sort of reminded me that somehow Brundle has this great ability to just pull out of the bag a little bit of experience, a bit of technical detail, a little factoid from his driving and paddock experience, and put it out there as a little soundbite in a very condensed form, in a way that Coulthard and Davison, for all their strengths and more recent experience, just can't quite do.
He's a great communicator.
He's a really good broadcaster.
Yeah.
He's really
and if you're an F1 geek as well, I think when he suddenly pulls something out from his early career even, he'll just ref something, he'll go, oh, God, yeah, he drove for them, and he'll tell you something about 80s F1. If you care about the sport, you'll just kind of get off on that as an interesting fact in its own right. It sort of reminds me of when I was once going through a car wash with Gareth, and he told me about interviewing Aha. And I enjoyed that enormously, and I've never forgotten it, because I like Aha, and I like the 80s.
Yeah.
Hello, my lovers. Welcome. It's Martin Brundle here from the Grand Prix of China. Big up Norfolk Massive. Now, I'm joining you in the commentary box. Oh, get out, you pest. You're coming in mad. Oh, all right. I'm joining you in the commentary box here by Morton Harkin from Morton?
I know, I have no idea what I'm actually doing here. This has got to be an error. I dread to think you could be filling in for me at the AHA concert in Oslo.
Hello, Oslo. I'm David Coulthard. Sorry about that. Okay. That's hot. Electrical. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm just gonna. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm gonna get this guitar. I'm sorry, I'm not very technical at all.
Gareth Jones on speed.
Before you arrived this evening, Richard, because you were late.
Sorry.
Please don't do it again, otherwise there'll be penalties. Zog and I were talking about plans for the year. Oh, yeah, we got Goodwood. Yeah, we got Le Mans. We've got to sort that out. Yeah, we got the car. Oh, who are we going to blag it from? Yeah, British Grand Prix. Who are we going to blag that from? So it's clear to me that we've...
Heaven forfend we should pay for anything this summer. Which
I paid for something once, darling. I wouldn't want to do it again. Yeah. But it strikes me that we are entering the season of being outdoors with cars this year. And you've already started it, haven't you?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the season started in as much as it is a season. And the season start has been the Pride of Longbridge Festival for me, which happened last weekend.
Where?
It's in
Longbridge in South Birmingham. The gist is that it's...
Excuse me.
It's an allergy to talking about South Birmingham.
It was the rust particles.
Yeah, it's a bit...
From that BMC 1800.
Amongst some people I know, it is officially called the Pride of Longbridge Festival or something, but it is unofficially known as the Festival of Rust, or just Rustival.
I like Rustival.
So why did you go? Were you invited? You got friends there?
No, it's the thing.
Pervert,
talking, I am a filthy pervert when it comes to brown BL tap from the 70s. What happens is there's a big park opposite the Longbridge car factory, and they just make an arrangement with the council that they can fill it with cars. There's just an area of this vast park that people come in. And originally it was for any car that was made at the Longbridge factory, and they'd kind of allow in like an MGB or something because the engine was made at Longbridge. Hello. And now they've really opened it up, and if you've got a British-made car, then
that still runs.
Knock yourself out. Exactly. Well, I mean, it's just an achievement in itself, and if it can drive across what might be vaguely damp grass without dissolving, then whoa, knock yourself out.
But could you turn up in a Innocenti Mini, for instance?
Oh, they'd bloody love that.
Okay, right.
Of course,
Yeah,
because it has a very, very stout and clear connection with the
British
actually just
brand.
restarted factory across the road. It was quite nice that in the week in which the first MG6 hatchback started coming off the production line at Longbridge, or the stuff the suspension in and glue the badges online, however you like to regard it, was the week in which all of these great cars from that once massive factories past gathered. But they're also, not going to be so pedantic as to not allow in, say, like Maestros and Montegos that were built in Cowley in Oxford is now the Mini factory, but they
It's
probably
all part
would
of-
draw
it's
the
all part of
line.
the family. It's all-
Exactly. But they probably would draw the line at allowing in a BMW Mini built in the Cowley factory because, really, I mean, that's not the sort of link
It's
with
not
the
a real
LMC
Mini.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
I'd be interested to see what happened. I left my Jaguar XJR outside on the road where people were parking sort of unconnected cars. And then someone said to me, oh no, on the organisers' plan, they had set aside a Jaguar area. And there was one bloke in like a sort of 90s XJ. And I
He'd
thought...
like some company. So.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing was, though apparently I didn't even know there was an organisers' plan, even though my mate Big John was one of the organisers.
Your mate Big John, I've heard
My mate Big John. Big John's a
Hello,
legend.
Big John.
Yeah. Big John is a remarkable man, and a man who devotes his life to old British cars. I was actually parking my Jag miles down the road because it was packed, and the road outside was packed with cars. So I parked the Jag miles down the road, and then John drove past in his MG and went, jump in, I'll give you a ride to the site. And he was driving actually into exhibit. But... And here, eventually, huzzah, is my point about why this is a brilliant day out. First of all, this is the third year in a row. It was the biggest turnout I've ever seen. There were hundreds of cars of all sorts. And the joy is, although there's a plan, apparently, that says, we'll have, all the Metros here and all the original Minis here and stuff like that, actually, the truth is, it's a bit of a glorious shambles. So you'll be walking down a row of cars.
Somehow appropriate to the
Yes,
history.
exactly.
It's a metaphor for the British car industry.
But in a wonderful, wonderful way, because you're walking down and you're going, oh, look, there's like a 1959 Morris Mini. How great. And there's another one next to it, and then there's a sort of a 60s Mini, and there's a proper Mini Cooper. But then, boom, right next to it, there'll be a Maxi. And then, or you'll be going, oh, look, there's a line of Austin 1100s, but then wallop, right next to them, a 1983 Rover Vitesse V8. Yes. So the randomness, you never know what you're going to get next, and it's all embracing. There's some occasional sort of, separate headlights, horn on the outside kind of cars, but then right up to...
Clown cars, as they're
Well, yes. Didn't see any doors falling off, but I did see one where up to 17 blokes got out, improbably. But then further up the field, you'll have a bunch of young lads who'll have got MG ZRs or ZSs, and some of them have got the full-out sort of gull-wing doors and stuff put on them.
Lovely.
But they're happily sort of hanging out on this sunny day in this park in Birmingham with some old buffer with a beard who's got an MG Roadster that he's polishing the chrome trim
kind
on.
of gathering of the tribes. Sort of.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I may not be selling it to you because, frankly, if you don't care about old British tack, you're just thinking that sounds like hell on earth. But if you are even vaguely interested in that sort of thing, and in cars generally, it is a wonderful and actually fantastically unsnobbish sort of car show because everybody's just there to enjoy stuff.
What was your favourite of all the cars there? Something that moved you that you hadn't seen
well,
before?
obviously, as I mentioned, Rover Vitesse, original Rover Vitesse. And God, that's still a good-looking car and still makes a good noise. And its sort of most modern ancestor, the MG ZT V8, which I still have little wobbles over, and I almost bought one of those before I bought my Jaguar. And they had quite a few of those there, and some absolutely pucker originals. Some people put superchargers on, big noisy pipes on them, stuff like that. Yeah, there's a real scene around those cars, mainly because the people had to band together, correct all the bits that the factory never bothered to develop properly. But it's nice that they do that. And then you still see an proper original Mini, like an early 60s one. And it's such a neat, simple design because it's actually form through function.
Yeah, it's a very pure thing. It's really...
So you forget how simple, because you don't see them around so much anymore, that with the small lights on the back and everything, they are really
I mean,
sweet little cars.
One little memory that I have of the Mini, this is from driving in family friends' cars as a small kid. I seem to remember that the door handles on the inside were just like a strip of cord.
Yeah.
It was like
it was,
plasticised string almost, or plasticised...
Because they didn't want, in
rather
a modern car, the door is actually, it's a hollow casing because it's got all the gubbins in it. And in those original Minis, it wasn't. They didn't want anything within the door because they wanted it to have massive door bins that you could get. Well, supposedly, I think Alekis Sigonis wanted to be able to get a large bottle of gin in there so you could carry it back from the shop.
Well, remember...
I like that kind of thing.
Exactly, it's good, that, isn't it?
Because actually, I just had a rather large martini last night and I ran out of gin. So
listen, while we're on the BL trip thing here, there's a new Mini proposed. They're talking about this new, smaller Mini, which has been dubbed the Rocket Man.
Yeah, they showed that concept off.
Stupid name.
Yes.
Great little proper car. This is a proper Mini, in my opinion. I think the name for that car, if and when they do manufacture it, already exists in the Mini cachet of names. It's a Mini Minor, isn't it? That's what they should call it.
I thought you were going to say Macro.
Mini Macro, I like that. Yeah. Mini Minor would do it. And the Countryman should have been the Mini Maxi.
Well,
I think.
There's a great story about that because I think the Maxi name in this country, at least, is forever associated with that rather clever but unfortunate looking, the Maxi.
The Maxi.
And when they were doing...
1750 HL person.
Yeah. Oh, well, you should have been at the Pride of Longbridge Festival.
Lovely.
There were loads of them. But when they did the design shootout for what we now know as the new Mini, when BMW still owned Rover, the Rover stylists had come up with those two cars that became the spiritual concepts. I don't remember those. They were quite neat. Rear engine. Mad engineering would have cost too much to do and blah-de-blah. But there was a little one.
Yeah.
And then...
Called the Spirit, was it?
They were called Spiritual when they were shown as concepts, yeah. And then there was the larger one, the 5-door, which had a longer wheelbase and looked slightly different. And apparently someone from BMW went, well, this smaller one is the Mini, so this larger one should be the Maxi. And all the Rover people had to sort of giggle politely into their ties and then go, Klaus, there's a reason why we can't do that. Let me explain. But yes, where were we? Rocket Man concept.
Yeah, should have called the Mini Minor.
Yeah.
Listen, we've got to wrap this now because we've talked about this too long.
Why do people think we'd go on about BL too much on this show? I think we've barely mentioned it at all today.
I have a question though, Richard.
Go on.
This event is called Pride of Longbridge.
Yes.
Perhaps the only gay Austin Rover crossover Mardi Gras car show event.
The word pride is not
You're
inexorably associated with gay pride. Otherwise, you'd be wandering around going, lions, they're all gay, how weird. Why, how do they ever have babies? They adopt from where? They're all gay. It's not that, but
You sound strangely like Clarkson when you say that.
I thought I sound like John Bentley. Is it? I don't know. Welcome to the Gadget Show. Yes. But it's funny you should mention that because people were going round the Pride of Longbridge in a heterosexual manner.
Yeah, smoking a pipe, flat
Yeah,
cap.
exactly. Well, that's the weird thing. It really is a bit like that in places. And you think that if you went up to them and went, so, it's brilliant. All you gay guys are getting together. They'd be pipe flying everywhere, copy of the Telegraph on the floor. But people were going around the Pride of Longbridge putting flyers under windscreen wipers of the cars that were just parked there because there's sort of Rover 75 Owners Club spotting a 75 that was not from one of their members that they knew, so they put their little flyer on, join our club, with cheap pots and thriving social scene and all that sort of awfulness. I mean stuff. And and then I noticed under the wipers of some cars, these flyers that in big letters at the top said, "Are you gay and into classic cars?" And I thought, do you know what? I know there are gay classic cars. Yeah, I suddenly realised. I threw my wedding ring into the bushes and ran off with a bloke with an MG Maestro 1600.
Smelling of leather.
And cordite. I don't know where that came from. Oh my God.
Cordite?
I didn't mean cordite, did I?
blew it up?
Yeah, exactly. Corduroy. Anyway, but actually I didn't mean corduroy as well. I meant velour. How did cordite go?
How do you
Alcantara.
mix up nitrocellulose with... Anyway.
So go on with the reaction.
No, well, that's the thing, but I just saw this. The thing is, I used to work with a guy who was gay and loved classic cars and loved classic British cars. So
I don't think the two things are mutually
They're
exclusive.
not mutually exclusive. However, at this event, when there is still a very sort of beardy, pipe smoky element, I just thought,
not very gay.
I don't know, an interesting place to try and canvass. I didn't even read the rest of the flyer because I was so like... really? Are they trying that? What, you put it, don't put it under the wiper of an MGB GT, because the chances are that it is some beardy old chap. And it's like,
Marjorie, he's questioning my sexuality again.
I tell you what, though, you know where they could hold this event, don't you?
go on.
Gaydon?
Hey!
You've been listening to Richard Porter.
Goodbye.
Zog.
Goodbye.
I apologise for that joke.
Oh my lord. We're in trouble now.
Usually. See ya.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site or follow us on Twitter, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!